at 7:30. Great. All members of the Plan Commission are present. Wait, is Josh here?
Josh was not going to be able to make today's date. He's the only one not here.
Okay, great. So everybody else is present. Okay, great. Thanks for confirming that. All right, the first item on our agenda is to approve the minutes from the November 23rd meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Trustee Backer.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Trustee Backhorst to approve the minutes as presented, seconded by Commissioner Kudo. Is there any discussion? Commissioner Kylie Miller.
Thank you. I just have one little insertion on page 3 of the minutes. And under C, Plan Commission Deliberation, in the 3rd paragraph, 2nd sentence. The sentence reads, she, meaning me, asked if the consultants will just be given a list or if they will have access to all information available. And I would like to fully cover what I said. I would like to insert after that a comma and then including dissenting public input on these projects, so that that they're getting the full flavor of community support or lack of support, or however that might be. And I had one question really, but maybe I must have zoned out during this discussion part. Under the overview of our hybrid form-based code zoning, I had a question about the design review board will be in charge of reviewing these zoning applications in the future, but we can discuss that when we get to that part of the agenda. That was on the 2nd page. But so I just had some questions about that, but I can bring that up further on.
Do you think it's an error in the minutes or something that's not clear?
Well, I just don't remember that part of the discussion. And so, as I said, either I zoned out or I didn't understand it.
Director Griepentrag?
Yeah, I think that was actually in the memo as well. That refers to development applications. So obviously, if it's a permitted use within all other zoning requirements, the Plan Commission doesn't necessarily see those redevelopments. So it was referencing that they will be the reviewing body for architectural improvements. So I do believe that was also in the memo, but I hope that clarifies what that was intending to read as.
Yeah, it does. So that sounds like it's not all that different what we do now. We're, if
Correct.
There's something questionable about whether it fits the zoning, but as far as the architectural stuff, that goes before them now. So that makes perfect sense. Thank you.
But just to be clear, it's not there's nothing in the minutes that you think is incorrect or needs to be changed?
No, that must have gone over my head. I just don't remember that part of the conversation. That's fine.
Okay. Well, thank you. So there is making that change is agreeable to anyone or to everyone? All right, so is there a motion to approve the amended minutes?
Sure. So, yep.
Okay. And Commissioner Kudo, you keep your second?
Sure.
All right. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Show of hands or voice. Aye.
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 Is there anyone opposed? All right, the minutes are passed unanimously, those present. So moving on to the next item, we have a conditional use permit. Let me make this a little bigger so that I can read it. Consideration of a conditional use permit application for the expansion of an existing orthopedic clinic at commercial property 3970 North Oakland Avenue in the village of Shorewood. Director Griepentrag, can you give us an overview of this item?
Sure, 1 second, let me share my screen real quick. So what we have before us then is a conditional use permit application from the Orthopedic Hospital of Wisconsin for a clinic expansion within the first floor of 3970 North Oakland Avenue. Project and parcel overview. Brandon Goldbeck from the Orthopedic Hospital of Wisconsin has applied to expand the existing orthopedic clinic to the entire first floor of the commercial tenant space of the building at 3970 North Oakland Avenue. The property is zoned B1 Commercial Use District. The B1 Commercial Use District is intended to provide the village with a mix of retail, service, restaurant, office, and residential uses in a pedestrian-friendly, active shopping environment. Building massing, scale, and appearance, and the general character of this district should be oriented toward a small town Main Street pedestrian character. Clinics are specifically listed as a conditional use within the B1, B2, and B3 districts per 53527D. As such, their approval is subject to consideration by the Plan Commission upon notice and the holding of a public hearing. The property is currently developed with a 7-story commercial building with a mix of professional office tenants. The clinic would expand from 2,350 square feet of occupancy to 4,777 square feet on the first floor of the building. The site also includes a surface level parking space to the south and east of the building that contains 144 parking spaces. Exterior modifications to the building, including the addition of first floor windows and employee entrance and exit, and the removal of the drive-through canopy on the east facade, and the replacement of the former ATM with a new matching commercial window on the west facade have been reviewed and approved by the Design Review Board. A contractor has also applied for permits associated with interior renovations, which are currently under review. Proposed operations. The applicant is proposing to extend the existing clinic, which offers outpatient ambulatory physical therapy and treats orthopedic injuries and post-operative to patients. The clinic will be open 7:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. It expects to see 15 to 50 patients per day. 3 to 7 employees would be on site at one time. The clinic hopes to have its renovations completed by May 1st, 2022 to accommodate expanded operations. There we go. Parking. Per the newly adopted ordinance 3034, code provisions related to required parking facilities shall only apply to new buildings or structures and substantially enlarged buildings or structures or changes in use classification. The proposed internal expansion and occupancy classification of business to business do not qualify for review based on the code. For reference, parking provisions for medical, dental, and veterinary clinics are now subject to review by the Plan Commission as a conditional use as applicable, with general guidance of 4 spaces per doctor, dentist, or veterinarian. Based on the proposed operations with up to 7 doctors/practitioners, this occupancy could require 28 off-street parking stalls. As previously noted, the site has 144 off-street parking spaces. Staff acknowledges that a master occupancy list, including required parking spaces per tenant, would be desirable for future reference in relation to the overall provisions of the site. Based on the number of small occupants in this building, this would require considerable upkeep. Review and approval. Per 53525, the Village Plan Commission shall review the site, existing and proposed structures, architectural plans, neighboring uses, parking areas, driveway locations, highway access, traffic generation and circulation, drainage, sewerage, and water systems, and the proposed operation. Conditions such as landscaping, architectural design, type of construction, construction commencement and completion dates, sureties, lighting, fencing, planting screens, operational controls, hours of operation, improved traffic circulation, deed restrictions, highway access restrictions, increased yards or parking requirements may be required by the Village Plan Commission upon its finding these are necessary to fulfill the purpose and intent of this chapter. Furthermore, per 53525C, no conditional use permit shall be authorized by the Plan Commission unless such commission shall find that the following the 7 characteristics on your screen have been met. Staff comments. Based on review of the application and the proposed operations and site conditions, staff has no objections to consideration of the conditional use permit. And I will stop sharing my screen, but I can go back to anything if necessary.
Great. At this time, I'd like to open the public hearing, and then we will go towards or are there any other components of the overview? Is the applicant here?
I do not see the applicant on the line.
Okay.
We did send it to them and requested their presence, so that would be up to you to determine whether or not that's necessary, I suppose.
Okay. Well, I guess at this time, I'd like to open the public hearing. So at this time, I'll open the public hearing at 7:41. Are there any members of the public who would like to be heard on this matter at this time? You can raise your hand or unmute yourself and state your name and address. All right, I am not seeing anyone with a hand up or who is unmuted. So I will close the public hearing at this time at 7:41. And we can move on to Plan Commission deliberation. Does anyone have any questions at this time regarding the matter at hand? Dan or Commissioner
I'd like to
Wickman?
make a motion, if that's okay.
Yes,
I move to approve the conditional use permit application for the expansion of existing orthopedic clinic, commercial property 3970 North Oakland Avenue, based on meeting the conditions stipulated in 535-25C.
I'll second the motion.
okay. Motion by Commissioner Wickland, seconded by Commissioner Kudo. Is there any discussion related to the 7 factors? Are there any findings or do you find them applicable? Commissioner Kylie Miller.
Thanks. Of those 7 listed, number 4 and 5 seem to be the most germane, access roads and being able to provide ingress and egress to minimize traffic congestion. You know, pulling in and out of this parking lot has always been problematic, even when the bank was there. You can't make a left-hand turn onto Oakland from the west, entrance. You can't make a left-hand turn onto Capitol between 3 and 6 p.m. So, that was true before. I don't think it has any, so that might, prove difficult for patients or employees. But I think that would be true no matter who was the tenant and for all the other tenants in the building. So it might, be a problem for people maybe trying to do a left-hand turn headed southbound on Oakland. But unless the police department or the village wants to do something about changing that, I don't think we can hold that against the applicant. I did have a question about, because this is for physical therapy, if there were any parking spaces marked for handicapped drivers, or any reserved spaces for the clinic that would be close to the entrance, because that might be an issue for patients that have mobility issues. Or is that something that is left up to the building owner to apply for?
Yeah, per ADA requirements, they are required to have, I believe, 3 ADA stalls for this size of parking lot, which they do have closest to the building. So they comply with that. If they wanted to have more, or if they wanted to reserve spaces for this individual tenant, that would be up to the individual or the property owner, I suppose. If for some reason you thought as though we should recommend that, I could pass that along, but they do meet ADA requirements for the existing parking that's on the site right now.
Okay, thank you, Bart.
Trustee Bockhorst.
I'm good and ready to vote.
Any other comments from the plan commissioners? So to be clear, the business already has a conditional use permit for this use. The only reason they're coming before us is because it's expanding the amount of space that will be used for this purpose.
Yeah, that is correct. So existing conditional use permits, if they alter or expand their operations, are required to have that re-reviewed. So I could have clarified that, but that is correct.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's take a roll call vote.
Dan Wickland,
Yes.
Therese Klein,
Yes.
Barbara Kylie Miller,
Yes,
Eric Kudo,
Yes.
Trustee Bockhorst,
Yes.
President McKay.
Yes.
6-0.
Thank you very much. Moving on to the next item, it is, I believe it's the update on hybrid form-based code zoning. Director Griepenschlag.
Yes. Not advancing for some reason. Oh, now it's going to advance all the way. Thank you, President McKeag. So what we have before us then is an update on the hybrid form-based code zoning project that the Plan Commission has identified as an initiative and the village board has supported through funds in the 2022 budget. As you'll recall, and as was documented in the minutes, the Plan Commission did recommend the hiring of a consultant, which the village board confirmed at their December 6, 21 meeting. So Codametrics and Duncan Associates has signed a contract to begin this work as soon as possible. So with that, staff did arrange a call with the consultants just to kind of understand what the next couple of months might look like and get things in our calendar. As you may have noted from the project scope, it was discussed that one of the first steps would be a kickoff meeting with the consultant and staff. We have a very small staff working on this project, namely myself. And so the consultant and I both described that that wasn't really necessary for us to sit down and discuss this amongst ourselves. And so we agreed to expand the invitations to that kickoff meeting, quote unquote, to any member of the Plan Commission, Design Review Board, Community Development Authority, Conservation Committee, and BID that's interested in hearing the project. The meeting would also be publicly noticed, although it's not intended to be a public workshop per se. And so within that, January 12th was selected as the ideal date for both staff and the consultant based on other village meetings that are scheduled in January and their calendar that was available. It will be held virtually. Once again, all members of the Plan Commission, Design Review Board, CDA, Conservation Committee, and BID will be invited to attend, but there's no necessary requirements to do so. It will consist primarily of a presentation on form-based codes, so kind of a good refresher for groups as to what we're getting ourselves into in terms of the uniqueness of the update. It will also provide an overview or introduction of the project scope, schedule, and deliverables. The consultant also did recommend the formation of a working group. So that working group would just be contacted throughout the project, perhaps if there was questions or need to confirm dates or just kind of background history on some things. It would be primarily through email. It would not be a virtual meeting kind of standing committee of that nature. It would be more so of a reference check along with staff. With that, 2 volunteers from the Plan Commission, Design Review Board, and BID would be asked to volunteer themselves to their respective chairs to be passed along to the staff liaison, myself. 2 was selected to avoid any sort of walking quorum issues. And so we are allowed to have 2 from each of those groups. And then also with their interests, but not as necessarily relevant experience, the CDA and Conservation Committee would each be asked to provide 1 person if possible. Once again, all those volunteers would be solicited through the chairs and confirmed through the chairs to staff. With that then, after the kickoff meeting, we would be planning to promote and host a virtual open house in February. In March, the discussion was that would be our opportunity for an in-person open house. Obviously, all this is subject to current health and village board guidance on in-person meetings, but she did think that was the meeting that was most appropriate for in-person exercises. And then April would once again be a virtual meeting. So that schedule is preliminary and would be flexible, needs to be flexible based on the health conditions and village meetings, et cetera. With that, a project website has also been started. There's not much on it yet. So other than your packet, there's not much on this website, but it will be updated as we get information and pushed out through village managers memos and Facebook and things of that nature. And then one final request the consultant had was that we come up with a project name. She did ask that the name not necessarily include form-based code because this project does involve more than that. It is a hybrid project, as we mentioned, and so the uses will also be discussed. And so she thought if we focus too much on form-based code, we're going to miss, the other half of the project. And similarly, she wanted it to make it clear that this related to the commercial district, not to residential district. So it's a very boring suggestion, but commercial district zoning update was offered, but we would be looking to confirm that perhaps within that January 12th kickoff meeting. And so with that, I'd be happy to stop sharing my screen and take any questions or discussion points that you might have.
I'm sorry, you froze. Was it just me? You're all fine?
Yep.
Okay. Great. So you concluded, Bart?
Correct. Yeah, the two concluding things that weren't in the memo, otherwise I just kind of surfaced the memo, was a project website has been created. There's not much on it quite yet because there's not much to put up there. And then the consultant asked that we come up with a name, and she'll design a logo then for it, just to kind of brand all the meetings with that similar thing. So the two suggestions for the name were to make sure it is not focused solely on form-based code, and to make sure that it's clear that this relates to commercial district. So that name would be confirmed in the January 12th kickoff meeting.
Thank you. So what kind of feedback would you like from the commission at this time?
At this point, I don't really need any specific feedback, but I'd be happy to hear any that you might have with respect to the proposed plan to move forward. But beyond that, the specific feedback would be solicited by the consultant at the January 12th meeting if you're able to attend that.
Great. Well, I think that I love the idea of having a working group, and the way you're going about putting it together makes a lot of sense. And I'm looking forward to the meeting in January. I also think the website is a great idea, and the project name is a really helpful idea to decrease confusion. Commissioner Kylie Miller.
Hi. Bart, when I was reading this under the task 3.1, where it talked about organizing a new system of uses, and I made a little note whether they meant conditional uses, like the one we just voted on. And then when I looked at our future goals, I saw that, yes, there was a plan to kind of bring the conditional use review, permit review under that. Could you tell us how that would work? I mean, it just seems like it could be like a whole separate thing. The form-based seems more based on, like what we were just saying, something the design review board would look at. And I'm just wondering, are we just trying to do all the zoning work at once, and how that would kind of fit in with, especially with the public input and all that?
Yeah, good question to clarify. So the project was approved as a hybrid form-based code, hybrid relating to both use and form. And so we wouldn't necessarily throw out our existing use classifications. So just for your reference, we actually have 4 categories: permitted, conditional, prohibited, and unclassified. So the firm of Duncan Associates, that's the other firm. So Leslie Oberholzer of Codemetrics, she primarily focuses on form-based code. The firm Duncan Associates focuses on traditional codes. And so they will take over that aspect of it. I don't know exactly how they plan to do it, but obviously they'll review our current code. They'll review items that have gone to the Plan Commission. If we continually have approved clinics of a certain size or things of that nature, they might suggest, modifying that. They'll probably, at least I hope they look at our unclassified section and kind of firm that up a little bit better. And then also perhaps just get a little more nuanced in terms of permitted and prohibited uses, just to make sure the business district has the right mix of occupancies. So I don't have the specifics of how that will come up, but the draft of that will obviously be part of the review process. I presume public input will be held before that draft is provided. And so if you have specific thoughts on uses that you would like them to specifically focus on, I am sure there'll be opportunity to share that. But yes, this is a hybrid project, so both use and form will be reviewed within the process.
Great, thanks for your explanation.
Sure.
And I imagine all those recommendations are non-binding. They are simply recommendations.
Correct. The village board will need to formally adopt an ordinance update based on Plan Commission recommendations. So, this will be 8 to 10 month process, which will be plenty of time to review and provide those thoughts.
Other questions or comments? Any concerns? All right, I'm not seeing or hearing any. Okay, can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Great, everyone's a little frozen. So Bart, are you seeing any hands up that I don't see?
I am not, no.
Okay, well, let's move on to the next item then.
Sure. So item 5, or correct, I believe, well, the next item nonetheless is a review of the 2021 annual report for the Plan Commission and the submission of future initiatives. So let me just share my screen. I can show you the worksheets that I have drafted for consideration to submit to the village board. The schedule is slightly different this year. Previously, we had reviewed these in early January, February, first review in March. But the village manager has requested that we get these done at the end of the year for sharing, in January. So with that, I just drafted the cover annual report, which just verifies that we've convened 13 virtual meetings, one joint with the village board regarding the comprehensive plan. That's actually up, I believe, from the year prior. We pretty significantly finalized the draft, held virtual open house, and recommended adoption via resolution of the comprehensive plan. We considered 10 conditional use permit applications, 2 parking special exception, and 1 commercial district side/corner setback. We recommended updates to the front yard and street side yard patio requirements, which the board ultimately adopted on October 4th. You guys also recommended updates to off-street parking requirements, which the board adopted on November 15th via ordinance 3034. And as we just discussed, you developed an RFP to solicit and recommend the selection of a consultant for the hybrid form-based code zoning update, which will occupy a lot of your activities in 2022. So are there any questions on the recap of activities for 2021? If not, we can always come back to it, but I'll just go ahead. So this is kind of what we submitted last year. So number 1, comprehensive plan was in the works. So that was not listed as an initiative because that was already in progress. The number 1 next thing was revised off-street parking requirements, which I just mentioned we did actually get to. So I recommend that we remove that unless for some reason there's a need to take that back up. Number 2 was to review the zoning map. 3 was to review and update home occupation regulations. I recall that being highly prioritized in relation to COVID and things of that nature at the end of 2020. And so we did add that. That was a new one that we discussed. We previously always had on there increased housing opportunities in the zoning code, such as accessory dwelling units. And then 5, 6, and 7, I think also relate to the hybrid form-based code zoning update. 5 being the review of the permitted conditional uses and prohibited uses. 6 being the zoning code site design standards, and 7 being green standards. That's also something the Conservation Committee has wanted the village to tackle in the future as well. So I think items 2, 5, 6, and 7 will be touched, if not fully, very largely within the hybrid form-based code zoning update. So I think we're on a good track to make some progress on those. So with that, it'd be my recommendation, and obviously you guys can add, discuss, amend as you wish, but I would suggest that we submit 3 initiatives, the first being the hybrid form-based code zoning update. The second be to look at home occupation regulations if and when we have the time. And then thirdly, increase housing opportunities in the zoning code, for example, accessory dwelling units. So that is what I would recommend we consider submitting. I'm happy to turn it back over to President McKeag to lead discussion.
Commissioner Kudo?
Art, thank you for all this. Can you walk us through a little bit? Number 2, review, update home occupation regulations, please.
Sure. I don't have a full memory of what it relates to, but I remember former Commissioner Sangeeta Patel had raised a question at one point about allowing more home occupations with respect to perhaps music lessons or dance classes. We currently only allow them as a one-on-one application, but perhaps if you wanted to teach 3 children at one time or have a dance class in your basement, that currently is not allowed in residential districts. So it'd be looking at the uses that we currently allow and under what standards. And so we do have a various like 10 or so regulations that relate to if you want to be a lawyer from your house, you must follow these regulations. You can't have I believe it's things like you can't have like a sign in your front window, things of that nature. So I don't know them offhand because quite honestly, they don't come up very often because they are permitted until otherwise noticed. So it would be a great opportunity to be a little more on top of those uses. And we don't have a lot of manufacturing or auto repair, things like that going on. If that was happening, clearly we'd be enforcing that. So it'd just be a matter of reviewing the list of listed occupations and the regulations that are associated with them.
Great, thank you.
Bart,
Commissioner Miller?
yeah, was it under this point that Sangeeta had mentioned once, allowing something maybe like a gallery night where artists throughout the village could have some kind of, display of their art, or was that maybe under another future goal?
I think it was a different item, but it definitely could be related to this, because if it's a home, well, I think she mentioned
Like
it within the-
studio, yeah.
Yeah, she mentioned, I think, within the comprehensive plan items in terms of greater access to, artistic opportunities. And actually the regulation that kind of prohibits that currently, I think, is the garage sale regulations, which say you can only sell so many items in your front yard so many times a year, things of that nature. So it wouldn't be tied with this specifically, but when we look at that, we could also look at retail sales in residential areas to see whether or not there's a certain instance in which we would like to expand them. I don't know if there's an answer to that, but yeah, I think she brought it up under a different aspect, but it's always good to remember that when we would look at this to see whether or not it's relevant.
Okay. Besides these 3 items, how quickly do you need to submit these to the village board? We'll have quite a bit to do this year with the form-based code. Would you like us to give you any others, since these are also supposed to be for future years?
Yeah, I believe we have until the end of January. So if you wanted to review this once again in at your January meeting, which we will be having one, I think there is time to do that. I know Becky had wished that I get them done this year, so I didn't get a chance to review it in November to give us 2 meetings, but I think that we could review it in January again. I will say we will not get to all 3 of these items next year. I don't expect to get to more than the first one, quite honestly. But it's never a bad idea in my mind to at least list things that you'd like to work on, because once again, home occupations came up as a new item last year. And so it was good to just have that memory of what we were looking at. So if there are other specific things, I'd be happy to list them. I wouldn't expect that we get beyond more than 1, but having, 2, 3, 4, 5 does not hurt, in my opinion.
Okay, thanks.
Is there a motion to approve the 2022 priorities and annual report as presented?
I'll
I
make a
move to-
motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, so I think that was Commissioner Kylie Miller, seconded by Trustee Bockhorst.
Yes.
Any further discussion? Commissioner Kylie Miller, is your hands up? Is that left over? Okay. Then all those in favor, show of hands or voice, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, priorities are adopted as presented. Thank you so much. All right, are there any future items for consideration? Trustee Bockhorst?
Yes, I know this isn't directly planned. Well, it is tertiarily, secondarily. So I am not seeking a 4th term on the village board. So just getting the word out there. You guys have until I think it's January 4th or so to submit nomination papers. So you'll have a new trustee on the board after April or May, I guess it will be. So anyway, that's it. Thank you. And I hope everyone had a great holiday and continues to stay safe and well and have another great holiday coming up.
Great, any future agenda items? Bart, do you have anything?
I don't. I can, well, maybe I do, I guess. I don't know. I can confirm that we will have a meeting in January. We will have an update in the hybrid form-based code at the very least, but I'm also expecting perhaps the submission of the side/corner zoning setback for the proposed redevelopment at Stowell and Capitol. They have not shared or submitted any architectural plans to date, but they did communicate with me earlier in December that they expect to have that application in for a January Plan Commission confirmation of that setbacks, and what we similarly did to the Wilmer proposal at Lake Bluff. So it's not in yet, so it might not come in yet. Things do change, but at the very least, we will be discussing the hybrid form-based code, and so there will be a meeting in January.
All right, thank you very much. I think the only thing left on our agenda is motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Sure.
Okay. Well, you had me there for a minute, guys.
Oh, let's talk
so
some more.
Motion to adjourn by trustee Bachor, seconded by Commissioner Wickland. All those in favor, say aye or show of hands. Aye.
Aye.
Bye.
Any opposed? All right, with that, we are adjourned at 8:05. Thank you very
Having a
much,
5-hour
everybody, for
time.
time
Bye,
and
everybody.
Good
what's
night.
that? All
No,
right,
nothing. Good night.
Happy New Year,
everyone.
everyone.
Just wanted to
Thank you
wish
so much.
everybody happy New Year, as was having some connectivity issues earlier, so I joined you a little late, but I'm glad to see you got through item number 3 without any questions or issues. Didn't need me, so good to know.
Well,
All right.
I'm glad you're here
Take
though,
care.
Nathan.
Take care.
Have a good
All
night,
right, take
everyone. Happy
care.
New Year.
Happy
Happy
New
New
Year.
Year.
Bye. Happy New Year.